Evening, friends. Are you all hearing me? This is Shiv Kumar Mani. I'm very happy to meet you all through this live video session on a very interesting topic, law of attraction from Bhagavad Gita perspective. To give a very, this is something that started in the very early 19th century. Uh, when one of the gentlemen who was having a sort of he was suffering from tuberculosis, and there was no proper treatment for tuberculosis at that point of time. So what he did was just like that, he was just going on he was riding the horse, and while he was riding the horse, he found that he was feeling much better. Then he thought about it, and then he was able to understand that when I diverted my mind from a particular thing to another thing, accordingly, the physical aspect also changes, the output also changes. So this is how it all started, and very later part of 19th century, the law of attraction was there in the communication by the Westerners, and from then there on it slowly developed. And I'll share you certain tips that will be useful for you on this, just to give an idea like how it all started. So in 1877, this law of attraction appeared in print for the very first time in a book written by a Russian occultist, Helena Blavatsky. So this is how it all started, and from there it slowly developed and it took different shapes. And when it became really prominent is when the movie Secret came into the market. In between, there were a lot of other books written by so many people, like Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Power of Positive Thinking in 1952 by Norman Vincent Peale, and You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay in 1984. And so many books came in, and in 2006 the Secret movie came, which is the one that really made this law of attraction very popular, and it became a very very common communication across. And then it was the movie was later on converted. It came in the form of a book also in the same name as Secret. And from then onwards, later on in 2010, that is 2010, The Power, there's another book which is related to law of attraction came into the market. So there were so many things happening in it, but the crux of the communication on the law of attraction is basically it's all about your mind power. So it's giving a lot of importance to the thoughts that you develop in your mind, and how these thoughts are going to influence you and help you to achieve success. But there are certain gray areas which have been highlighted by many of the eminent people in the Western world, and also science was not very comfortable with the theory that just by thinking you can achieve things. The law of attraction goes to the extent of saying that it's not only just thinking of what you want. They say you now start thinking that you have already got it all, which means if I'm hungry, and what law of attraction says is it is not just enough that you think that I will get my food. It says you start thinking that you already got the food and you have eaten and your hunger is over. So these are certain gray areas, that were not comfortable with many Westerners perspective, and they have written many articles on this. How this law of attraction is not a very practical approach. Of course, for any concept, for any theory, even in science also, when some people say yes it works, There are people who say that it doesn't work. So that's how it goes on. So I was just getting into this very recently, even though I was aware of this law of attraction and I've gone through the book, The Secret. I just left it. I didn't give much importance at that point of time. That was few years back. But after late, when I was, getting into this, and so much is talked about thoughts, then I thought I should really go deep into it. And post my involvement with Bhagavad Gita, I could see there are, discrepancies or variations in this what is said in law of attraction, which is a Westerners theory, and what is there in Bhagavad Gita, which is talks about the law of life. So I thought I will just make a small, presentation on this and try to communicate certain things. How in certain areas they are common, but how in many areas they are divergent. So that's a effort from me through this video. thoughts are something that we cannot ignore. Now, what happens with that thought? The very simple basic understanding is that since in time immemorial, when the human race started, their life in this planet, all that has happened in this planet, through the human beings, are nothing but their thoughts getting manifested into action, and that action is coming out with some result, whether it is destructive or constructive. So, end of the day, one thing that we need to very clearly understand and go ahead with law of attraction is basically, yes, thoughts are the very beginning thing in our life. But then we need to understand this a little bit more. How these thoughts are formed. That's very, very important. That's where I want to connect this law of attraction with Bhagavad Gita. So, thoughts are formed primarily through the inputs, from the inputs that we get through these five senses. These five sensory organs get these inputs from the external source, whatever it might be, according to the sense organ. Then they are dropped into the brain. It's like a brain where everything is put in. And there in the brain, it is converted as memories or impressions or perception or whatever you call it. This is how the thought is primarily explained in the Western philosophy. But we are going to see a little bit more through Bhagavad Gita and our scriptures, and why that we need to slightly look more wider, in a more bigger picture than what is said in the law of attraction. So I am not going to say that law of attraction is not correct, nor I want to say that Bhagavad Gita is the best, but I just wanted to see that what are the other aspects that if can be added to law of attraction, that will be of much more beneficial than what it is currently. That's the whole objective of it. So it's a small analysis. So end of the day, I'm not going to prove which is right and which is wrong. I'm going to analyze this and look forward for your comments or communication on this. So this is how the thoughts are formed. So the source for our thoughts are through, the external factors only, and the gateways for these external things to get into our brain as memories are our five senses. These are very simple, human life phenomena. Now from here we will now move. What happens with the thoughts? So the thoughts slowly are converted into action. Now the question here is that all our thoughts are getting into action. And sometimes we need to be very, very glad that many of our thoughts are not getting into action. Assume that if all our thoughts are converted into action or manifested into action, what will be happening to ourselves? Forget the planet. What will be happening to ourselves? Because many of our thoughts are so bad, so lousy, so vulgar in nature, that if they really manifest into action, I think the number of rapes that we are seeing today may become limitless. As I always believe, with our the thoughts becoming so wild and weird, because what we see outside and what we perceive them through our five senses, is really making us into a sort of a very wild thing, or very weird thoughts. And there is a dangerous danger here. But this is, this is something that is going to happen. The five senses are always going to communicate with the external factors unless that particular sense is disabled. Someone who does not have a vision, someone who is having a hearing impairment or something like that, who has lost his senses, like a polio person who has lost all the nerves connected to the sensory part of the skin, and is not able to feel the sense, touch sense, or something that happens. Otherwise, these sense organs continuously communicate with the external source, and they are there only for that. Through this communication, whatever that gets into us through these gateways of 5 gates are primarily registered in our brain as memories. This is one aspect. Now, how they manifest into action? All our thoughts, it's like passing clouds. When you see the monsoon season, you see there are at times the clouds build up. You think that it's going to pour, and suddenly a wind comes and takes away those clouds, and then the sky is clear. And this also happens to our thoughts, like the passing clouds. Yes, one is the cloud that I told you, which has built up to that extent it's going to pour, and then the wind came and shifted that cloud to some other place, or from that place, I would say. And there are other clouds which you see, these white clouds which are so light, they are so top, so much high in altitude, and the wind blows, they just keep moving away. What you call it as a passing cloud. They don't have any purpose. They're formed and they keep moving away. Maybe they create a small shadow or shade. That's it, nothing more than that. But there are clouds which gets all that ingredients to convert into a pouring rain. Sometimes it pours in such a way that area is flooded, and maybe it leads to major destruction also, as we are seeing in monsoons. So our thoughts are something like that. There are certain thoughts which are very high in altitude, maybe the 40,000 feet above the sea level, and they just there and keep move away. Maybe they form a shadow, a little bit of shade, a little bit of disturbance, and then they move away without really creating any impact or damage. There are certain thoughts which seems to be getting manifested into action, like the second type of cloud I told you, which is it seems that it's going to burst and pour, and suddenly a big wind comes and it takes away. And some of our thoughts are like that. It's almost manifested into action. Suddenly some sense prevails, and this thought moves away, and the action is aborted. The manifestation doesn't happen. But there are some thoughts which gets all that ingredients to manifest and get into action. And so all thoughts are not converted or manifested into action, and thank God or the nature has created us like that. As I told you earlier, if all our thoughts are going to manifest into action, I think it's going to be an absolute chaos in this planet. So thoughts are manifested into action, but the point that we need to understand is that it is not that all the thoughts that are going to get manifested into action. Then which types of thoughts are going to get into or manifest into action? What are the ingredients? The first part is the intensity of the thought. And the second part is the duration of the thought. And the third part, the thought creating an impact on your psychological and physiological areas. So one is the intensity of the thought. How much you make that thought intensive. How intensive it is. How can that happen? When you keep on nurturing that thought. When you keep on doing all those things where it is going to nurture the thought. You deliberately work on that. Let us understand it. Unless you deliberately work on a thought, you cannot nurture that thought. You cannot convert that thought into an intensive one. Like a disease, no one gets an heart attack overnight. Heart attack is something that has slowly nurtured by doing all those actions that will nurture it. And one fine day, it comes out as a heart attack. Similarly, you nurture it consciously or unconsciously. And most of the time, it is consciously done. Thoughts are very consciously nurtured. You look for those environments that will nurture your thoughts. You look for those people who talk about it. You look for those action areas which are oriented with your thoughts, that supports, that puts that manure, fertilizer for your thoughts. So this is something where from a non-intensive level, you build that thought to an intensive level. This is done by you. And second is, you are going to make that thought psychologically and physiologically impactful. Which means, now, whatever the thought is oriented or built upon, whatever that idea on which the thought is built upon, if that is not going to happen, I am mentally affected and physically affected. When these things happen, they are filled with those ingredients which can manifest this thought into action. Now you cannot stop acting. Even when sense prevails, you have nurtured it to such an extent. The impact of the thought on your psychology and physiology is to such an extent, even that event which may make your sense to prevail will not have any impact or influence on it. And that's the time your thoughts manifest into action. So, dear friends, by just thinking that I am going to become a great person, or I am already become a great person, is going to make you into a great person. And what about action? Actions can be constructive or destructive. In the narration of Bhagavad Gita, whenever we say constructive or destructive, we are talking about the planet as such, not individual or someone's family. But in law of attraction, it talks more. It's oriented or focused towards individuals. I'm coming to that later. Another point that we really need to understand is that the thought becoming action, becoming destructive or constructive, have two areas into it. One is your type of thought. The thought itself is going to create a destructive or a constructive impact or an effect or a result. The second one is the ability factor. Sometimes you have a thought that is very constructive, but you don't have that ability. You haven't worked on your ability, but you got into this action. And now what happens? Even though the thought has got those things which can give a constructive result, is not able to give that result. Why? Because you don't have that ability. So I'm harping on the second point on law of attraction, which says you think what you want and you will get it. And you think you have already got it, you are going to get it. Dear friends, whatever you want to get, you have to get into action. And for that action, idea or thought alone is not sufficient. Your ability to do that action in the way it should be done is very, very important. What we call it as a skill sets that will help you to effectively act. If that point is missing, dear friends, then in spite of your action, your thoughts being constructive, your incapability, your inability based action will convert it into a destructive. So we need to look into this factor, ability, which is very, very important. And as I told you in the beginning, all that has been created by humans in this planet are nothing but manifestation of their thoughts into action. Right now, the technology that I am using, right now, you are able to see this session live. It's all only because someone's thought has manifested into action, and that person, please remember, had the ability and capability to bring his thought not only into action but convert it into a desirable result. When I say desirable result, I'm saying constructive. I'm going to give a different perspective for all those things when I get into the Bhagavad Gita area. But right now I'm going in a very westernized thing and a little bit of our Bhagavad Gita. Now, let us understand this mind. This is talked again and again and again. And I'm going to look into this mind, analyze this mind in the perspective of law of attraction as well as Bhagavad Gita. So once we understand this, the rest of the things which are going to be much more meaningful for us. So as far as law of attraction is concerned, your mind is nothing but your thoughts. They don't have any other understanding or any other version or any other aspects of mind. So as far as law of attraction, it's only thoughts. Mind means thoughts, thinking. And they give so much of importance to our thoughts. Now let us look into this mind in terms of Bhagavad Gita, what they say. So they say mind is divided into 4 parts, and one of the part is further divided into subparts. I'll see this. In Bhagavad Gita or in our scriptures, we say mind as Sukshma Sarira. Sthula Sarira is our body, and Sukshma Sarira is our mind, and then we have the Karana Sarira, which is responsible for whatever that we are into in this birth. So the Sukshma Sarira, what all they say? They say Sukshma means that which is not visible or that which is not something that you can really work on. But it is there. Intellect, identity, memories, and bliss. Intellect, all that information that you gather from outside. That's called intellect. Intelligence is different and intellect is different. Intellects are nothing but those informations that you have gathered from the external source, whatever it might be. Identity. Your mind also has this particular area called identity. Now when we talk about thoughts, it's not that simple. It's very, very important. This factor is there with every human. With every human, this factor is there. It is not there with any other creation. No other creation would be able to identify itself. The tiger doesn't identify itself as a tiger. The tiger is not, doesn't identify itself as a tiger. It doesn't know. The dog doesn't know to identify itself as a dog. I'll just show a simple thing. See, once it was so happening, there was a dog show. Many people came with their dog with all that dressed, and they developed them on certain skills. So wonderfully done. I'm sure many of you would have watched these dog shows, and many of you would have participated with your dog in that. So once the show is over, now the final thing is that the announcement of the winners. So as usual, even in the dog show, they have three winners: the first prize, second prize, and the third prize. And you know that there used to be this dice. The first prize winner will have the top platform where he will standing on that, and slightly lower to that platform will be the second prize winner, and slightly lower to that platform will be the third prize winner. We have seen this from our school days. Okay, now the third prize winner was announced, and the person with the dog which was announced, which won the third prize, he walked on. He was very sad. He was very sad. But you know what was the dog doing? It was just walking casually, as if it used to walk even otherwise. So the instructor or the owner of the dog said, "Get up on this platform." It got into the, the lower platform, the third prize platform, and it was sitting there like this and nothing else. And the second prize winner was announced, and that guy also was sad. But he was slightly happy because he is not in the third level, he is better than the earlier person. So there was little bit of solace for him because it was a second prize. And so he came with that little bit of happiness and pride, but still he is not happy. But now what was the dog doing? It was quite comforted. It was just walking as it used to walk any other day. Got into the pedestal, which was there for the plank for the second prize, and it was again sitting and now the first prize was announced, and the winner of the first prize was jumping in the air. Hey, my dog won the first prize. Yeah, I am the winner. But what was the dog doing? It was just simply sitting. It has no reaction at all. And this guy, poor guy, walking with all that pride that I am the winner, my dog is the winner of the first prize. He went there with all his head high and chin high, walking so proud. And then he reached there. But what was the dog doing? Just walking like the other two dogs. It just walked like the other two dogs, which got the third prize and the second prize. The first prize dog didn't have any reactions or any symptoms of winning the first prize. Walked and he said, "Get up on the pedestal," and it got on the top. Even though it is sitting on the top most pedestal, it was just sitting and doing like the other two dogs. And not only the other two dogs, all the other dogs who were there which didn't win any prize at all. These human beings are identifying themselves as the third prize winner, second prize winner, and the first prize winner. But what happened to the dog? The day is as usual for it. Nothing else. So no other creation in this earth could be able to identify itself as something, but only the humans can do that. Identify. And this identification, how a person identifies himself, is what going to determine what type of an intellect he is going to gather, the information that he is going to gather, what type of thoughts that he is going to gather. If I identify myself as a rich person, then all my the intellect properties are going to be how to become more rich. My thoughts are going to be in those areas, and those are the thoughts which are going to get all these ingredients to manifest into action. If you identify as a literate person, educated person, you identify yourself as a thief or a rogue or whatever, you are going to be that. That identity is very, very critical. Everything revolves around that identity, and you do anything and everything to maintain that identity, prove that identity, establish it, and make it more strong. And that's where the humans suffer. I want to make this also. And that's where the mind, it's a part of our mind. And the third one is the memories. Now, intellect is also a type of memories, but when I say memories, it is divided into various types of memories. like genetic memories, which are there in our every cell, and cell memories, functional memories. You know, every organ in our body has got different types of cells containing the memories which is going to help that organ to function in a particular way. Even though we have so many cells, all the cells do not have same type of memory. They have different memories. This is called the functional memory. So your heart muscles, the cells in the heart muscles are going to have certain types of memory which is going to make that muscle work in that way. Your kidneys have different memories which is going to help them. On the other, in another way, it is like a computer engineer having the memories or the intellect of the computer science. So he will work on the computer. He cannot work on driving a steam engine, a locomotive. He cannot drive that. He cannot do that. He cannot do something on science. Why? Because his brain is flooded with that particular memory. Similarly, our body has got one is the genetic memory, and the other one is the functional memory. Then we have this karmic memory. Karmic memories are responsible for our birth, vasanas, and certain behaviors. These karmic memories are further divided into three types of karmic memories: the prarabdha, sanchita, agami. Prarabdha are those memories with which we are built in, like a laptop or a computer which is built in with particular operating system. So we come with this. We are not a clean slate. Dear friends, many people think we are born in a clean slate and then only we add on things. No, you are already coming with an operating system. Whether it's an Apple OS or Windows OS or Linux, we don't know. But we do come. We are not coming with a clean slate. And that is called the prarabdha karma or the prarabdha memories, karmic memories. One. And then we have the sanchita. Sanchita means sanchi means bag, where things are put, which means we have still memories in stored somewhere. I don't know where it is, but it is stored there and it will be used as and when we require. It's like a RAM and a ROM. In ROM, where everything is stored, in RAM, where you keep working, the applications are working, everything is happening at this moment. So something is stored there. So that's a sanchita. That's another karmic memory. And the third one is agami. Whatever you do, like in a computer, whatever the new things that you create, then you save it. Until then, that was not there. Now you worked on an Excel file or a PowerPoint file, you created a new file and you stored it. Like that, whatever we do in this Janma is stored as agami karma for later use. Now, what are you going to store? Is all yours. The laptop is with you, internet is with you, the websites are there, everything is there. Now your karmic memories are there. So these are the memories, the genetic memories, the functional memories, the karmic memories. Then you have other memories which I would like to say, like, say for example, a human being eats apple for a week. A cow also eats apple for a week. So after a week, does a human being becomes a cow or a cow becomes a human being? Is there any confusion happening? That's called an evolutionary memory. When a human being eats anything, it is converted for the development of the human being. And the same stuff, if some other creation, a cow or a tiger or a dog eats, like a biscuit, you eat that biscuit, you give the biscuit to the dog. You do this every day in your house if you have the dog. Has anything happened? Has the dog got any human behavior, or the human got any dog behavior? No, they remain as what they are. Nothing happens. Why? That's called an evolutionary memory, which is a wonderful thing in the creation. That's what retains and maintains each thing as what it is. Otherwise, there will be absolute chaos. Absolute chaos. So these are the memories which is there. This is what there in Bhagavad Gita and in our scriptures. Because, and then they have the bliss, Ananda. The bliss means where you have no memories. It is absolutely thoughtless state, memoryless state. Is it possible? It is possible. And I, for one, in this platform, can very strongly say whatever said in our scriptures and Vedanta, that is what is Bhagavad Gita is all about, is all possible. But whether it is possible by you and me is a question. So, it's possible. That's the stage we are calling as a blissfulness. Now, this is where I am going to connect these things. And here we say that mind is also denoted as a reflecting body of our consciousness, and consciousness is what is Atma. You are aware of everything. What is that makes you aware of everything? When you are asleep, sleeping, when you are dreaming, when you are in a deep sleep, it's called a deep sleep, dreaming state and awakened state. These are the three states. All these three states, that awareness is there. When you are awake, there no need to explain that. That awareness is not there, because you are awake, you see everything, you feel everything. Yeah? Your awareness is there. When you are dreaming, that awareness is there. Even though physically you are not experiencing anything, mentally you are not experiencing anything, but something is happening in the dream, and once you wake up, you are able to share the dream, which means you are aware of the dream. Sometimes you get in the middle of the dream also. And the third one is a deep sleep. When you are in a deep sleep, you don't know anything. You don't know anything. What happens to your body? You don't know. What happens to your mind? Shut down. You don't know what's happening inside your body. Physiologically, psychologically, physically. But once you wake up, what do you say? Wow, I had a wonderful sleep here. I don't know what happened in the last few hours. I slept like a donkey. You are able to say that, which means that awareness is there. That's why when you get up from the deep sleep, you could able to share that. You feel much satisfied, relaxed. You tell people also that I had a wonderful sleep. But when everything is shut down, your mental aspect is shut down, your psychological things, even though most of them are shut down, and you're physically, you are senseless. So then how you are able to say that you had a wonderful sleep? And that is what in scriptures we call that as consciousness, the awareness factor, the Atma, which makes you aware what it is. And so what in scriptures it is said, mind is nothing but the reflecting body of consciousness. Mind is one that able to reflect. I am not going to get deep into that because it's a huge subject. So this is how the mind is talked about. So in law of attraction, it's only thought. In Westerners' philosophy, mind means only thought, nothing else. And we give too much of importance to the thought, and we work everything on this thought. We say change your thought. But then look at what our Bhagavad Gita and scriptures say. It is talking about intellect, identity, memories, as I told you, different types of memories, and the bliss, thoughtless situation. And it is a reflecting body of our consciousness. That importance of mind is there. So now, when you see all those things and you connect with that, it does. So when we say thought, so many things are there. The intellect, our intellect, whatever the information that you have gathered from outside is going to influence your thought. Your identity is going to influence your thought. Your memories, as I told you, the genetic memories, karmic memories, functional memories are also going to influence your thoughts. And of course, blissfulness, which is thoughtlessness, is also going to influence your thought. So these are there. Whereas in law of attraction, they simply say, think positively and everything will happen positive. Think negatively and everything will happen negatively. But we are going slightly more than that into it. So there are so many versions of this law of attraction, like new thought, mind over body, law of success, the secret. There are different versions of this law of attraction available in this market since the early 19th century. So now we'll get into a little bit. They say only one thing. All these things they say, as you think, you become. Is it that simple? If everyone wants to become a Tata, Ambani, Bill Gates, Narayana Murthy, and whomever else you want to, or Bajaj, Mahindra, Anand Mahindra, or maybe a Tendulkar, maybe Amitabh Bachchan. I'm just giving few names. Everyone has got this desire to become something like that. But are they becoming? So is life so simple that you, as you think, you become? No. They say you're made up of your thoughts. No, you're made up of something based on which your thoughts are happening. That's what our scriptures and Bhagavad Gita talk about. And that is what Lord Krishna wants to educate Arjuna also. Fine. So we will see what else next year. In Bhagavad Gita, how it is looked into it. Bhagavad Gita says, so is your karma, so are you. Bhagavad Gita talks on action. It doesn't say keep on thinking, everything will happen. And your action determines your success. And what is that required for the action, that we will see later. But Bhagavad Gita says, our Upanishad says, karma, and this Bharat Bhumi is nothing but based on karma. When when Mahatma Gandhi was with one of the British guy, he asked Mahatma Gandhi that, why don't, you people are not talking about your rights, why don't you put your rights forward? So he said, our rights are only to do our karma. Our rights are only to do our karma, not demand something. This is what our scriptures, Upanishads say. You are there to do your karma. Focus on your karma. But it is further said as karma yoga, not just action. Right action with the right attitude. Right action with the right attitude. That's what karma yoga. Okay, now, our scriptures, Bhagavad Gita says karma yoga. The third chapter in Bhagavad Gita is karma yoga. What is karma yoga? Right action with the right attitude. And that is what matters. You need to know the right action, and you need to know to do it with the right attitude. I'm not going to get into the karma yoga, but I want to give certain things here, which we will see in the next slide. What is our life derives everything as per law of attraction is only thoughts or perception, and through which action comes. But what Bhagavad Gita says, action can be destructive or constructive. But what Bhagavad Gita says, everything in life is derived through knowledge about the truth. And what is this truth? I will tell you shortly. through that the action, and then it's going to be only constructive. Why it is going to be constructive? Your knowledge is all about truth. When you know the truth, your action is going to depend on that, based on that, and when your action is going to be based on the truth, the result is always going to be constructive. So what is this truth we are talking about? See, law of attraction says, as we will see in the last slide, the next slide, it is suggesting you to connect with the external world with all the materialistic aspects. How to become rich? This book, I think more than 100 million copies were sold. So the motivate people to get connected with the materialistic world. And when you are connecting with the materialistic world, you are going to go in the wrong direction. Why? Because everything that you are connecting is untruth. When I say untruth, they are not sustainable, they are not permanent, they are not dependable. So when you are going to connect with something which is not sustainable, non-sustainable, it is not truth, and it is non-dependable, then how your life will be? Dear friends, please think about it. But the Westerners' concept and the law of attraction makes people to think more into the materialistic world. You think of achieving something. What is that you want to achieve now? And when everything is changing, it talks about the subconscious mind. What is the subconscious mind is all about? It says build something and embed that very strongly in the subconscious mind, and that will make you to happen things what you want. But our scripture says be conscious every moment. Every moment you be conscious. Why? Because everything is changing. Even one moment if you are not conscious, you are going to miss something in your life. The more you are conscious, the more you are going to wonder, appreciate everything. The more you are going to get associated with it. But when you are not conscious, when you are on your subconscious mind, when is the subconscious mind formed? If the subconscious mind is formed based on a particular perception through the thoughts that you have developed and strengthening that and holding on that. But when your subconscious mind was made, it was some time back. And when you are still working on your subconscious mind, so many things outside have changed. You have changed. Your desires have changed. Your wants have changed. People around you have changed. Their demands and desires have changed. And now you are trying to put your subconscious mind into action and you want to achieve something which has become obsolete under the current situation. But our Bhagavad Gita says you have to be conscious every moment. Be aware. The more you are conscious, the more you get associated with the nature. And what is this truth? Bhagavad Gita says that which is sustainable, that which is dependable, that which is non-changeable, that which remains without any change in the 3 time period, the past, the present and the future. Can you say anything external, materialistic thing that remains without any change, that was there yesterday, that is there today and that's going to be there tomorrow? Can be assured on any one single thing? No. But Bhagavad Gita says that one thing which will be there, which is there and which was there is your consciousness. And that's why Bhagavad Gita says be conscious. And this consciousness is what is referred to as Atma. It is there that is unchangeable. Your consciousness will never change. The more you become conscious, it is always in the present. It's always in the present. It is there always. It is there. It will never change. It's because you are always conscious. You are always in the present. You are always connected. When you are in a subconscious mind, you get disconnected with the current situation. That means you are not conscious of what is happening today because you are working on your subconscious mind. And law of attraction says, work on your subconscious mind. Strengthen your subconscious mind. Put everything in your subconscious mind. That is the only thing that can lead to success. And the definition of success in our Westerners culture and as per the law of attraction is the materialistic achievement. And tell me how many people who have achieved the materialistic aspect are really, really happy. They are peaceful. They are still running for so many things. They still keep praying to the God. God, give me that peace of mind. And they haven't got that peace of mind till the death. So when that person dies, what we say? Let him rest in peace, at least now. But Bhagavad Gita says, you can live in peace, not to rest in peace. It says live in peace. To live in peace, understand the truth. The truth is, everything that your five senses can experience are not permanent. They are changing, undependable. Don't hold on to them. Experience them, but don't hold on to them. The five senses are there to give that experience. Everything around this world is there to give that experience. A wonderful sunset, a beautiful bird, the beautiful sound, the song of the bird, flowers, so many things in this planet are there for you to experience. But you experience them, but don't hold on to them. But law of attraction says experience and hold on to them, and that's what you want. And then you'll achieve. So, but then there's one factor that I want to add on, vibrations. That's what is said in law of attraction, and that's what our scriptures also say. Yes, your thoughts have got that ability to create that vibration. But the more you get into the materialistic thought, it's going to create a vibration which is not going to be a good one. Why? I will say this in the next slide. But the thoughts that are framed on truths are going to create this vibration which is definitely going to be useful, helpful to everyone. Now let us understand this constructive and destructive in the perspective of our Bhagavad Gita. We say Papa Punya. It's very simple thing which I will get into the next slide, and with that I will also be able to close this topic. Law of attraction is for material success, for self-development only, when it triggers your passion. But what Bhagavad Gita says, for peace, that's what we are running for, as I told you in the last slide, for worldly development and compassion. Bhagavad Gita says, shift totally from this. You want peace. Anything that you do with peace of mind is what something that's going to be excellent. But anything that you're going to do for the peace of mind, you are not going to achieve that. If you're going to earn money, if you're going to construct a building, if you're going to go out for some outing, vacation, some places, whatever that, you're getting married, getting children, all those things. If you're doing all those things for happiness, and happiness is not going to be there when your mind is not in peace. When you are in a disturbed state, anything that you get may give you a blip of happiness, but it will die out. But When you are with a peaceful mind, everything will automatically be happy. That's called the state of blissfulness. And Bhagavad Gita wants to take you to that place with peace of mind. And with that peace of mind, what we call as moksha. Moksha is not something that you are going to attain after you die. There's no use. What is that? I am going to learn all those things and do everything for moksha which I am going to attain after my death. No. Moksha means liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from attachment. Why? These attachments are something like the glue, not allowing me to get away from things which are troubling me. Law of attraction talks about desire, whereas Bhagavad Gita says desire is the cause for all the problems in human life. Law of attraction says work on your desire. Bhagavad Gita says work to get out of your desire. But I am not going to discuss the entire Bhagavad Gita, because if I want people to understand how to live without desire, it looks foolishness. I mean, this is not the platform. This is not the platform for that, because it's a huge subject. That's a contradiction I am trying to explain. Law of attraction talks more on self-development, how an individual can achieve what you want. You think what you want and you achieve what you want. But our Sanatana Dharma, which is what Bhagavad Gita is reflecting, talks about the worldly development. When I say Papa Punya, which I was mentioning a few minutes back, all the actions of Punya is that helps this planet to live in harmony, remain in harmony. The nature says, I have created the planet to sustain itself. Dear humans, don't do anything to damage it. I don't want you to nurture the planet, because what? I made this planet, I created this planet in such a way that it can take care of itself. All I want you humans, don't do anything that will disturb the harmony of this planet. But that's what we are doing. And to an extent, law of attraction pushes us to that way. Because the more you work for the materialistic achievement, the more you are going to cause destruction to the planet. And we are seeing that. Now we are trying to reverse certain things. How difficult it is, we understand. And so, that's one thing. So Bhagavad Gita or our Sanatana Dharma talks about the worldly development. Every action of yours should help the world to develop, should not disturb. So Punya means actions that helps to maintain the harmony, and Papa means sin, means actions that disturbs or destroys the harmony of this planet. And compassion, always think of others. Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu, Vasudaivaka Kutumbam. That's what our scriptures talk about, Sanatana Dharma talks about, Bhagavad Gita talks about. So we are not talking about the individuals, we are not talking about some small achievement which is going to take care of some people. We are talking about something which is global. Today we are talking about global, make it's global, everything should be global, it's become global. But really it is not become global. Transactions are happening globally. For what purpose? How my transaction can destroy the other part of the globe, and how his transaction can destroy my part of the globe. So that's what's happening today globally. But our Sanatana Dharma, Bhagavad Gita doesn't say, when it says globally, maintain the harmony. It says, please live the planet as I gave it to you. So that's a small analysis that I did with law of attraction and Bhagavad Gita, which is a reflection of our Sanatana Dharma, and this is what I could able to come out. I am not negating the aspect of thoughts. Thoughts do influence us, but then It is not just that the thoughts which are developed through the five senses that will influence us in a dangerous way. So thoughts are there, they are influencing. But then how to build the thoughts is something different. On what base or platform this thought should be built is what I'm trying to put forward here. So that's where this Bhagavad Gita plays a very, very important role for us to come up, to create this world, a place for everyone and for everyone to live in harmony, in peace. So let that law of attraction does not attract things that can disturb the harmony. Let the law of attraction attract something that can maintain the harmony, help to prevail that harmony, and that law of attraction is what is there in Bhagavad Gita. And I would really look forward for your feedback on the software I used, that is the quality of the video, the quality of the audio, the quality of the slides that you saw. That's one thing I want really, because the first time I've used this software to communicate live in FB. And the second thing is, I want you people to come out with your thoughts, views, whatever it might be, agree, disagree. It's all our individual way of looking at things. This will help us to work more on this. So thanks to all of you who have been watching this video and supporting me in this trial of usage of this new software. Hope to see you very shortly. Thank you very much and see you later.